Hello to all patriots throughout America. My name is Nelson Hultberg, and I represent an organization called Americans for a Free Republic, AFR, in Dallas, Texas. I'm going to be talking to you today about the prospects for establishing a second political party in America. Now, I'm sure that statement raises a few eyebrows. Don't we already have two political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans? No, we don't have two parties. What we have are two wings of the same political party, the Demopublican Party. Or, as the famous conservative columnist Patrick Buchanan says, two wings of the same bird of prey. What we have in America is a one-party state. On basic fundamentals, there's no real difference between Democrats and Republicans. No matter who wins on Election Day, we always get more taxes, more inflation, more bureaucracies, more wars, and less freedom. This is the way it's been for the past century. And I think millions of Americans agree. The only place where we differ is in how to confront this problem of demopublicanism. How do we fight this travesty that is dominating our lives? Some wish to work within the Republican Party and try to take it over with true conservatism. Some, however, would prefer to leave the Republican Party. I happen to be in this latter group. I believe we must abandon the GOP. What I hope to do today is show you how we can unify all conservatives, independents, libertarians, and blue-collar Democrats into one powerful political party that can effectively challenge the Demopublican bird of prey in Washington. In other words, how we can create a genuine two-party political system in America. I'm going to explain to you a revolutionary political plan that we at AFR call the Four Pillars Strategy. Our plan is comprised of 4 pillars of reform for our tax, monetary, immigration, and foreign policy systems, all of which can be implemented immediately and which will have profoundly beneficial consequences for the country. This strategy will get a prominent free market conservative into the next presidential election as an independent to challenge the Demopublican establishment. We believe that the right candidate running on the 4 pillars of reform would easily get 45 to 50% of the vote. The American people are ready for the 4 pillars of reform, which I will explain in just a minute. As the famous author Victor Hugo said, there is nothing more powerful in history than an idea whose time has come. By getting 45% of the vote, our independent candidate will leave the Democrats and Republicans with only 55% to split between them. This means they will have to merge for all future elections in order to remain politically viable. We will then have a genuine two-party system. We will have the National Independent Party to represent freedom, and we will have the Democrat-Republican Party to represent statism. It's our view at AFR that the past 60 years of big government conservatism, ever since Dwight Eisenhower, demonstrate conclusively that trying to change Republicans into Jeffersonians will never bear fruit. The Republican Party sold out the cause of freedom in the 1950s in its attempt to copy FDR's New Deal. This sellout was further expanded in 1972 when Richard Nixon brought large numbers of liberal intellectuals into the GOP who were disenchanted with George McGovern and the radical left. These intellectuals changed their name from liberal to neoconservative, and they then proceeded to take over the hierarchy of the Republican Party. They purged Goldwaterism, they purged the Constitution, and they purged free market capitalism. This neocon hierarchy controls the party because it has the influence to control the massive donations needed to be a Republican nominee. The neocons are thus the ideological gatekeepers of the Republican Party, which means liberals control the party. This hierarchy consists of powerful intellectuals such as William Kristol, Robert Kagan, Paul Wolfowitz, and Richard Pearl. Prestigious organizations such as the Council on Foreign Relations, the Hudson Institute, and the Foreign Policy Initiative, scholarly magazines such as Foreign Affairs, Commentary, Public Interest, and the Weekly Standard. These prominent scholars and bureaucrats are not true conservatives, and they are certainly not libertarian, because they don't believe in the fundamental base of America, which is the founder's spirit of free enterprise and limited government. Thus, all efforts to use the Republican Party to bring reduction of government and freedom to America are doomed to fail. Newly elected Republicans to Congress soon see who has the power and realize that going against the neoconservative elites will sabotage their path to re-election. Advocating genuine reform would ostracize them from the fundraisers of the Republican establishment. Thus, they readily join with the neocons and the Democrats to expand government every year. Moreover, it is very naive to think we can take over the Republican Party merely by sending more conservative legislators to Washington. To get control of the GOP, we first have to replace the neocon intellectuals who control the party. A whole new generation of scholars and pundits will have to be ushered in. This will require 30 to 40 years to bring about. Shifts of this magnitude take many decades. America doesn't have this kind of time. This is the major flaw in all attempts to work within the GOP and convert it to freedom. Legislators do not tell intellectuals how to structure a political party. The intellectuals decide how to do this on their own. Unfortunately, the intellectuals who control the GOP are all big government, statist, collectivist mentalities. In other words, neocon intellectuals control Washington and Wall Street both ideologically and financially. To expect incoming conservative legislators to seriously challenge these powerful intellectuals is like expecting schoolgirls to go up against mafia lords. The neocon agenda thus dominates the GOP because of the funding and ideological support that come from its vast network of scholars, institute heads, and corporate banking moguls. Therefore, trying to take over the Republican Party by voting in more true conservative congressmen will never stop America's dictatorial drift. We've been attempting to do this for 4 decades now, and the freedom advocates we send to Washington continue to get bought off by neoconservatism as fast as we can send them. Even when we got Ronald Reagan into the White House, he still was beholden to the party's neoconservative structure for re-election. Thus, he had to cater to the neocon intellectuals and Wall Street bankers. And the same thing will happen again if we manage to elect a free market conservative such as Ted Cruz to the presidency as a Republican. He will be obligated to the party's neocon hierarchy for re-election, and no legitimate reform will ever take place. Government will continue to grow larger and larger. This dilemma can only be solved by a prominent conservative running as an independent, and therefore not beholden to neocon intellectual and financial power. Only in this way can he truly be effective once he has won the presidency. This is because he will then owe his allegiance to the American people, not to neocon intellectuals and Wall Street bankers. Where then will his money come from if he abandons the neoconservatives and their Republican Party? It will come from the American people and from numerous mega-billionaires who agree with the necessity for the 4 pillars of reform. Thus, our goal at AFR is to recruit a prominent free market conservative such as Ted Cruz or Mike Lee to run an independent campaign on the 4 pillars of reform in the next presidential election, like Ross Perot in 1992. Only this time we stand clearly for freedom instead of just a vague reformism as Perot did. In this way, we can challenge the Washington establishment and unify all conservatives, independents, libertarians, and blue-collar Democrats into a vibrant grassroots force. So let's investigate the 4 pillars of reform. Both Democrats and Republicans reject them, but if our country is to have a future, these 4 reforms must be implemented. There can be no salvation of America without them. Pillar number 1. We must enact a simplified 15% flat tax. All special privileges in our present tax code must be eliminated. Everyone above the poverty level of $22,000 for a family of 4 will pay a simple 15% equal rate tax of their income that can be figured in 10 minutes every April 15th. Such a tax is not the ultimate reform. Ultimately, we must abolish the income tax itself. However, the country's not ready for that just yet, in due time though. But a simplified flat tax now will stop the unjust redistribution of wealth that creates the constant expansion of government spending in Washington today. If we as American citizens are to have equal rights under the law, then we must have equal tax rates for everyone. There is no justification for our present progressive tax system. It is contrary to everything for which America stands because it violates our right to equality under the law. When government violates its citizens' rights, it is partaking in an act of criminality. A criminal government can never create fairness and justice. The idea that we can get away with criminality against one class of citizens and not have it spread to all of society is now being shown up for the travesty that it is. Such illogic has brought us the bankruptcy of America. As the great Scottish economist J.R. McCulloch stated over 150 years ago, the moment you abandon the cardinal principle of extracting from all individuals the same proportion of their income or of their property, you are at sea without a rudder or compass, and there is no amount of injustice or folly you may not commit. This, then, is the moral and philosophical case for ending progressive tax rates. As for the practical case, a simplified flat tax will eliminate all exemptions, deductions, and favors conveyed to special interests. Its simplicity will save us billions of dollars in compliance costs and billions of hours in aggravation every year. It will require 10 minutes to figure every April 15th. Our National Independent Report, available on our website, demonstrates that the savings from our flat tax, when combined with our monetary reform plan, will raise everyone's standard of living by an average of 14% annually. This figure is corroborated by statistics from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the Joint Committee on Taxation in Washington, the work of economist John Williams at shadowstats.com, and James L. Payne's famous book, Costly Returns. So keep this figure always in mind. Our flat tax plan will raise everyone's standard of living by an average of 14% annually. Thus, no low-income earners will get hurt by the 15% equal rate tax. This is all explained in our National Independent Report. Pillar number 2. We must enact Milton Friedman's 4% auto expansion plan for the Federal Reserve. We must stop the Fed from expanding the money supply arbitrarily every year at 9%, 12%, 15%. This is what causes the relentless price inflation that plagues us. Our monetary base must be expanded every year at the same rate as goods and services are growing. This will reduce annual price inflation to zero and end the chaotic boom-bust economy from which we suffer. The 4% auto expansion rate can be phased into so as to avoid crashing the economy. Why 4%? That figure would balance monetary growth with goods and services growth, which averages around 4% in a healthy free market economy. Since price inflation only occurs when money growth exceeds goods and services growth, there would then be zero price inflation. This would allow us to check the irresponsible power of the Fed until the American people can be educated as to the necessity of restoring gold as money. So the Friedman Plan is only a temporary first step, but it is extremely important because it will circumvent the media's wall of resistance regarding gold. By approaching monetary reform with this first step, we can get the issue of inflation control into public discussion without being smeared by the statists as being worshippers of a barbarous relic wishing to go back to the 19th century. Ending the Fed and actual restoration of a gold standard would come later when the people show that they're ready for it. Pillar number 3. We must vigorously crack down on illegal immigration. This will be done through a 3-point plan that will bring about self-deportation of the great bulk of illegal immigrants in America today. There will be no amnesty granted. Immigration is not a natural right. It is a privilege granted by the citizens of the country involved. This was the view of Washington, Jefferson, and the founders in 1787. It was the view of the Supreme Court in 1892, and it must become America's view again. No individual has the right to enter a country uninvited for the same reason he doesn't have the right to enter a man's home uninvited. Both acts are crimes of trespass. According to ImmigrationCounters.com, the true number of illegals in America is 25 million, not 12 million. Just as the federal government is lying to us about price inflation, it is also lying to us about the number of illegals in the country. To bring about a solution to this tragic problem, both legal and illegal streams of aliens must be confronted. The first step is to return to the pre-1965 Immigration Accords, which will restore the sanity of a small stream of legal immigrants every year who wish to become Americanized, learn our language, and respect our Constitution. As for the illegal stream of immigrants, our three-point plan is as follows. Number 1, mandate English as the official public language for America. Number 2, eliminate all welfare benefits to illegals. Number 3, enact E-Verify into law so employers can check citizenship status. Does this threaten us with a national ID? No more so than we already have with our Social Security number. E-Verify merely opens up the database to all private employers so they can easily verify whether or not they're dealing with an illegal. Our problem today is that both Republicans and Democrats are obsessed with the illusions of multiculturalism. Both are poisoned with altruistic guilt concerning the poverty of the Third World. Both are blind to the balkanization morass into which they are driving America. Thus, we are cursed with pygmy politicians pandering for votes and wishing to ease amnesty in under euphemistic guise. If we allow amnesty to take place, the next wave of illegals rushing to America will be 40 million instead of the present 25 million. 50 years hence, our children will not be thinking kindly about the polyglot of third world cultures and disparate languages that we have bequeathed to them. It won't be America the Beautiful that we have passed on to the future. Pillar number 4, we must return to a mind-our-own-business foreign policy. This means ending our obsession with nation-building and the role of policemen for the world. Such policies are bankrupting us both financially and morally. The dangers to America do not lie in foreign lands, they lie here at home in Washington. Our foreign policy today is gravely misguided and is bringing America nothing but oppressive debt, economic decay, and moral vitiation. Radical Islamism is certainly a threat to our nation, but it does not require that we engage it as a hegemon fighting guerrilla wars in the Mideast. Military occupation of Arab lands, along with the attempt to sledgehammer Western culture into thousand-year-old theocracies, is neither rational nor legitimate for America to be attempting. Spending trillions of dollars in the blood of our youth to fight Islamic guerrillas in their territory is not what Douglas MacArthur and George Washington would have advocated. Both these great generals understood the danger of attempting to fight a guerrilla war in the enemy's home territory. And both knew the importance of defending that most crucial of perimeters, one's own national borders. This is where our fight against Islamic radicalism must be concentrated. Defending our nation's borders is what is necessary. If this means shutting out large numbers of Muslims as immigrants, so be it. Return to the pre-1965 Immigration Accords, then set an example to the world by building a free country here at home. Eventually, modern Muslims would follow our lead and emulate us economically over the decades. The radical fundamentalist Muslims would be left to stagnate in their own ignorance. America needs to return to the sage advice of Washington's farewell address as guidance here. We must end the policy of nation-building and the role of policemen for the world. We need to carry a big stick, yes, but walk softly. Help defend our strategic allies, yes, but stop the insanity of nation building and the neocons' benevolent global hegemony. This, then, is the Four Pillars strategy. It radically combines tax, monetary, immigration, and foreign policy reform. Yet it will not be seen as utopian and extreme by the people. Thus it will not marginalize our party as the libertarians do to their party. Will the American people go for 0% inflation, a simplified 15% flat tax, getting tough on immigration, and restoration of a mind-our-own-business foreign policy? We believe that they will, and they will do so with great enthusiasm. The power of these four pillars of reform can revolutionize America. This will be electrifying to millions of voters during the televised presidential debates. There is a massive groundswell of Americans out there who desire an alternative political vision. We must ask ourselves this: what good is it to elect a free market conservative such as Ted Cruz to the White House, yet have him unable to promote legitimate reform? It will be Ronald Reagan all over again, where government continues to expand disastrously under conservative leadership. As long as a conservative is elected as a Republican, he will be obligated to the neocon intellectuals and Wall Street bankers. But if he runs as an independent, he owes his allegiance only to the American people, and he can push full speed ahead for implementation of the four pillars of reform. This is the crucial political problem today. If a freedom candidate wishes to truly change things, he must not link himself with the neoconservative ideologues and crony capitalists of the Republican Party. A nationally known free market conservative running as an independent would easily qualify for the national TV presidential debates. Once in the debates, where he can explain the four pillars of reform to the voters, we believe he would get 45% of the vote and easily win the election. This would then force the Democrats and Republicans to have to merge. We would then have a genuine two-party system instead of the Demopublican bird of prey. To sum all this up, the freedom movement is now a powerful philosophical force in America, and it needs to create an effective political party to speak for it, the National Independent Party. We must understand, however, that the National Independent Party cannot threaten voters with overnight dissolution of the welfare state. Freedom can only be restored in stages. Thus, our first goal must be to bring sanity back to the country by implementing the four pillars of reform for our tax, monetary, immigration, and foreign policy systems. Such a second-party challenge, if led by the right candidate, will be big-time TV-oriented Major League politics. It will rock the nation, it will make history, and most importantly, it will stop the growth of the federal government cold and begin the restoration of a free republic. This, then, is AFR's purpose. We must put a prominent free market conservative into the next presidential election race, and through his campaign, restore a two-party system to American politics. Our National Independent Report delves into all these issues and will give you a detailed analysis of the four pillars of reform. It's only 21 pages, and it can be downloaded free from our website, afr.org. I want to thank you all very much for your kind attention. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and I hope I've been informative. If you agree with what has been said here, please pass this talk on to your friends and neighbors. This is the only way we're going to save our great country, through you